Hey, everybody. Welcome to Storytime, a monthly live that I do with people in the Storyworthy community, and hopefully you, if you're not in the Storyworthy community yet, maybe by the end of the day you will. My name is Matthew Dix. I am a storyteller. I'm a teacher. I'm an author. I'm a business consultant. I'm a bunch of things. But today I'm here to teach you a little bit about storytelling. Storytime is an opportunity for people to watch me craft a brand new story live sort of right here. So it's not going to be perfect, but I'm going to take a look at my homework for life. I'm going to find a story for you and show you some of the strategies that I use to craft those stories. Then we're going to do some Q&A. So if you have questions for me about the story I tell, or really anything related to storytelling, and honestly, anything not related to storytelling is pretty great too. I love answering questions. So there'll be a Q&A session where you can put questions in the YouTube chat. Use the letter Q with a colon so that we can find those questions easily. And then I'll be answering those questions live for you as well. We'll meet some people who work with me in the storytelling universe, folks who are involved in my partner in crime. So we'll meet those folks as well. At the end of this session, we're going to give away a free gift for you. So stick around and you'll get something in addition to the wisdom and the genius that you're about to experience today. And then later on, we'll have an after party. So if you want to join me and chat with me about some questions and things like that, that would be great too. All right. So we have a lot of things to do. We have about 45 minutes to get it done. I'm going to try my best to tell you an excellent story today. So in a moment, I'm going to take a look at my homework for life. If you're not familiar with Storyworthy and you're not familiar with me, homework for life is actually the most important thing that I teach. I teach it to 10-year-old students in my classroom, and I teach it to adults of all ages. Homework for life is my attempt to hold on to every day and to recapture days that I was too foolish to hold on to many years ago. Essentially, what I do is at the end of every day, or truly in the midst of every day now, when a moment strikes me, meaning something happens that I think is worth holding on to. That can be my son, daughter, or wife say or do something that I find interesting. It could be one of my students or friends say something or show me something or reveal themselves to be something I didn't realize before. It could simply be a thought that pops up into my head that I've never had before. That's a legitimate homework for life moment. Essentially, I'm looking for moments that happen during my day that make me excited about my day, depressed about my day, worried about my day, frightened about my day, ecstatic about my day. I'm looking for moments that mean something to me, and then I'm going to hold on to them. The problem in life is that we allow our days to disappear. So if I asked you what you were doing last Thursday or 2 weeks ago, you probably can't tell me anything about that day. It's already lost to you. Homework for Life says every day that's worth living is worth remembering. So let's hold on to it a little bit. I don't write the whole story down. I think that would be a chore. I love writing. I've published novels and nonfiction. I publish a blog. Writing is fantastic for me, but not for everybody. So it's a simple task. I have an app, Homework for Life, that makes it really easy. I currently still use my spreadsheet because I've been using it for the last 15 years. So in a moment, we're going to take a look at my spreadsheet for the last 72 hours. And what I'm going to do is find a moment that might be worth telling a story about. Typically within a 72-hour period, I can find a story. Not necessarily a story that I will take to the stage someday or take to a corporate location, but it might be a story that I'll tell my friends on the golf course, my wife over dinner, my children when we're sitting on the couch. Typically within 72 hours, I can find something. Let's hope I can. So we're going to take a look at my homework for life right now. When you take a look at it, you'll see that there's a spreadsheet here, and you can see that there are some blacked out items in my homework for life. The blacked out items are actual moments, but they're moments that sort of contain some information that I don't want you to see, either because it's private or, quite honestly, in these situations, it all involves people whose names don't deserve to be published on the internet. So if you can see, these are my last 3 days of homework for life, and I have to find a moment now. I could have prepared ahead of time, but why would I go do that? So I have to find a moment that's worth telling a story about. So if I look at the first day, oh, there's a moment here at golf that would be funny to tell. My friend, gentle parenting is amusing. I go to the movies with my daughter. Oh, I got it. I can tell a story about this. Yeah, I think I'll tell this one. So if you look at my homework for life, um, the item just at the bottom of October 18th, I wrote at the climax of the film, we were watching a movie in the movie theater, amazing car chase with hills, just a great moment. Clara scoots over to my seat to cuddle with me, and I say, "What are you doing?" I should have invited it, but the timing is weird. But how often will this happen? Yeah, that's actually a moment that'll land on the stage someday, I suspect. All right. So I don't want to give away too much, but we're seeing a movie called One Battle After Another, I think is the name of that movie. And you heard what I said. Clara scoots over to my seat and starts cuddling with me at a weird moment, sort of at the climax of the film. And I tell her to get away from me. And upon reflection, I think that was probably a bad decision. So I'm going to tell that story right now. I'm thinking about where I want to end the story. That's always where I begin, is with the ending. What am I trying to say to you? I know what I'm trying to say to you already. It's already in the homework for life. How often will these moments happen for me again? And then I have to ask myself, what's the opposite of that? That's going to be the beginning of my story. And now I have that in place. I'm going to try to choose an excellent place to begin that creates a little bit of wonder. It's tricky and hard. I will try as best as I can. I'm going to try to use a lot of buts in this story. You should butt your way through all your stories. Talk to you forever about that. All right, I'm going to give it a try. All right. It's not going to be the best version of my story, but it's going to be a story, and I hope you like it. So here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. I'm sitting in one of those really amazing movie theater seats. It's reclining. It has cup holders. It's pretty fantastic. It's nothing like the seats that I sat in when I was a child. And sitting beside me to my left is my daughter Clara, who is 16 years old. She's brought me to this movie. The movie is One Battle After Another. It was a movie I had no idea what it was when I came into the movie theater. It's my new way of seeing movies, which is Clara picks a movie and I purposefully avoid knowing anything about it. And so when I land in the seat, I legitimately don't know if I'm in the midst of a romantic comedy, a thriller, a horror, or anything. The fact that Clara is choosing the movies that I'm going to see and going to the movie theater with me is kind of astounding, because until about 3 years ago, Clara couldn't watch a movie. My daughter has autism. It's sort of that brand of autism that you wouldn't really know she has it unless you spend some time with her, but it does affect her life. And when she was a kid, it prevented her from seeing any movie because every movie was too stressful for her. We were in The Good Dinosaur, and she had to flee the movie because The Good Dinosaur was too stressful for her. She actually managed to watch Frozen the first time, but when we went back for the sing-along version, for some reason, the snow monster was too much for her the second time, so she had to leave the theater. The very first movie we ever took her to was Winnie the Pooh, and we didn't get through the Winnie the Pooh trailers before she was crying and we had to leave. But I think the clearest vision of what my daughter used to be was when she was about 7, we were watching a Curious George cartoon on the television. And at one point, the birthday cake was teetering on the edge of the table. The cartoon birthday cake was teetering on the edge of the cartoon table with the monkey sitting next to it. And she had to flee the room because it was too much for her. And I had to chase her out of the room and hold her in my arms and assure her that the cartoon cake in the cartoon room with the cartoon monkey would be fine. She had to she had so much fear and anxiety. I had to hold her close to get her through that. So sitting here in this movie theater watching this movie, which is definitely an adult movie filled with lots of stuff that she never could have watched 3 years ago, was crazy. But 3 years ago, she came to me and she said, "Dad, I want to see the movie Poltergeist." And I said to her, "You've seen a movie in your life, and most adults can't see that movie. What are you talking about?" And basically, if she had said it properly, she should have said, "Dad, my autism has caused my brain to flip, and I am now obsessed with movies, and I can handle any movie you ever show me." And weirdly, it was true. We watched Poltergeist, and she loved the movie, and she began watching horror movies, and now we go to movies together. And so we sit side by side in movies that I have a hard time watching at times because they're so horrific, and she loves every bit of it. She knows the names of directors and cinematographers. She watches movies from the 1920s. She watches art house movies from France that are subtitled. She is a serious cinephile. And so I am sitting here watching this movie, which I thought was going to be terrible because it didn't have a good title. And it turns out, once again, she was right and I was wrong. It's the end of the movie, and it's pretty fantastic. And there's one of the most amazing car chase scenes I have ever seen on film in my life. The cars are sort of coming up and down these hills. It's a terrible man chasing a 16-year-old girl. I have no idea how she's going to escape. And we're in the kind of movie where she might die. We're in a Paul Thomas Anderson movie where anything could happen and this story might not end well. And I am in the grips of this moment when I feel something that I do not expect. It is my daughter. She has sort of like come over her armrest and come over my armrest. And she's almost like trying to get into my seat. And I turn to her and I say, like, what's wrong? Because this is definitely not the movie where she should be frightened. There were definitely moments before this where she should have been wanting to cuddle with me and she had no interest whatsoever. I said, what are you doing? And she said, I just wanted to cuddle with you, Daddy. She whispers that in the most intense car chase I've ever seen in my life. And so I say something to her that does not surprise me then, but surprises me now. I say, Clara, get away. Like, this is an important moment in the movie. Go sit where you belong. And I sort of shove her aside. My 16-year-old daughter, in the midst of a movie, in the midst of a crowd, sort of climbed over her armrest and mine to try to cuddle with her father. And I shoved her away, which at the moment felt totally appropriate. It was a weird thing to climb over and cuddle with me. But the moment Clara steps out of the car and begins walking towards the front door of her house, and I see her with some clarity as the young woman she is quickly becoming, I say to myself out loud in my car, how many times do I have left? How many more times is she going to try to cuddle with her father? How soon will it be before I have to say, come cuddle with your father, honey. He needs a hug. Sitting in my car, behind the wheel, I realize how foolish and stupid I was, and how I need to tell Clara that I appreciate what she did, how stupid I was, and how I would love to cuddle her. I have yet to do that because that moment happened less than 48 hours ago, and I know that with kids, the words you say matter, but your choice of moment matters even more. And I know that because I'm thinking about how in the midst of an incredible car chase, something inside my daughter's heart said, I want to cuddle with my daddy right now. Not because of what was on the screen, but because of what was inside her heart. So I will choose an equally beautiful moment to tell her how stupid I was and ask her if she'd willing to have a make-up cuddle with me at this time. And my hope is that she says yes. Thank you. All right, that wasn't bad. I will reflect a little bit on that story, and then we will open this up for questions and answers, or at least questions. I don't know if I have answers for you. Hopefully I will. But let me just do a quick little reflection on that story. So I like to start by talking about things I liked about the story, and you should too. We are far too hard on ourselves all the time. And so uh, I'm always kind to myself. So I think about the things that I really liked about that story. I had actually forgotten until I was telling the story about the moment in the car when I watched her walk into the house. I had completely forgotten about that moment. But as I was telling the story and I was trying to find a place to end, I went, oh, right. I watched her walk into the house, but I stayed in the car for a minute. So I found that in the telling of the story, which I like a lot. I like stories that end in simplicity. I like stories that end sort of alone behind the wheel of a car because I think we have a lot of profound moments alone behind the wheel of a car and lying in bed at night and standing in a drive-through line. Like I think the moments that we have that have great meaning often happen in the most benign locations. So I liked that a lot. I like that ending. I kind of like the idea of me hoping to say yes. I don't like stories ending in a lovely little bow. I don't want to end the story with a hug. I want to end with the desire for a hug. I think that's a better ending. When we end stories like that, it keeps the audience wondering about what happened next. And if they're wondering about what happened next, the story stays alive inside them. I have so many examples that I could just go off on, but I'm not going to. But there's lots of examples of me keeping the story alive in people's minds by not completely ending it. And then I get flooded with emails and text messages and WhatsApp messages with people wondering what happened next. And I think that's a great way to end a story. That's the perfect way to end a story. So I like all that a lot. I was trying in the beginning of the story to sort of create the image of a girl who really couldn't genuinely see movies or even watch TV shows for most of her life. And then her brain flipped one day. I actually asked her, I said, why did you just start liking movies one day when you didn't the day before? And she said, Say hello to autism, Dad. And that's sort of it. Like her brain just decided that the thing she cared about before, which was mythology, obsession on mythology. One day she came to me and she said, Dad, I know everything about Tahitian mythology. And I said, I never want to know anything about Tahitian mythology, honey. Uh, it flipped and it went from mythology to movies, and it's been movies ever since. And literally, the first movie she ever watched to completion, other than Frozen, which she managed to get through the first time, was Poltergeist, a movie which legitimately most adults can't watch without being terrified. But somehow her brain flipped and she didn't care anymore. She recognized these movies as being artificial representations of stories that are not happening in real life. And so she's become the most enormous cinephile I've ever met in my life, the most knowledgeable person about movies I've ever met in my life, and such a broad understanding of it. So I was trying to create that at the beginning of the story. I was trying to hug her at the beginning of the story because she was afraid of Curious George. I love that Curious George moment. It's going to be in the story for sure. Maybe I only need the Curious George moment. But I was trying to show how I loved hugging my daughter when she was frightened as a small child. And today, as a 16-year-old, she's frightened a lot less. But when she wants to cuddle with me, like I used to love cuddling with her as a child, I should like it just as much. I should embrace the cuddle in the way I did when she was little, and I didn't on that day. It really was, though, legitimately a weird time to cuddle, honestly. It was like the weirdest time ever to cuddle, which I want to make that point clear. I want to make it clear that like it's legitimately weird, but appropriate. So I think I got to clean up the beginning. It felt a little hairy, meaning it felt a little bloated. I think I could say it a little quicker. And I think I can create a little more suspense in the middle of the story. Um, a little more suspense about what I'm going to do. I think I can raise the stakes a little by putting everyone around me. It was weirdly a full, not a weirdly, it was a great movie. It was a full theater. I expected it to be empty, but it was full. So, like, as she cuddled with me, the people behind us could see her, like, lifting her adult sized body over to me. The people to our left and right could see. I think I can do some of that too. It wasn't bad though. It wasn't great. It was like a B minus version of the story. It was very bloated. I need to tighten it up quite a bit and aim better at that moment in the car. It's hard to aim at a moment if you don't know about the moment until you find the moment in the middle of the story. I was aiming for a moment in the seat of the movie theater, and I realized as I was telling it, it can't end here. It's got to end somewhere else. And then I remembered. So all right, that's kind of how it works for me. So just so if you're looking to craft stories in your everyday life the way I just did, a couple things you can be thinking about. First, tell that story beat by beat, meaning take yourself step by step through the story. Don't get ahead, don't get behind, just stay within the moment as best as you possibly can. Start with the ending. You have to know what you're going to say before you start talking. I knew what I was trying to say. I was a father who rejected his daughter's cuddle, and now he resents it, not resents it. Um, now he's sad about it. Yeah, now he's sad about it. That's what I was trying to say. I knew what I was trying to say all along, so I was able to aim at it. Start at the end. Ask yourself an interesting place to begin. Start as close to the end as possible. I started during the car chase. I started with 5 minutes left in the movie. I could have started at the beginning of the movie, but that would be terrible. I started as close to the end as possible. I was seconds away from her jumping over the armrest to cuddle with me. That's where I started. That's where you should start too, as close to the end as possible. Not my advice, but Kurt Vonnegut's advice that I have adopted and own. All right, so do those things. And then find a moment that means something to you. You know, that moment really meant something to me, and I'm going to hold on to it forever. Even if I regret that moment, I'm going to hold on to it forever. All right, I hope that was helpful. If you have suggestions about my story, questions about my story, or questions about anything at all, drop it in the chat right now. Use Q with a colon so that we can find those questions right away. I'm going to introduce you now to my partner in crime and my friend Lionel, who he's going to actually watch the chat for me, and he's going to be telling us what the questions are. But why don't we meet Lionel first? Lionel, are you here? I hope to introduce yourself to everyone who is on the call.
I am here. Hello,
That's a
everybody. Nice
relief.
to meet you. Hi, Matt. That was a great story. I really enjoyed it. I don't have any
Thank you.
kids. Still touched my heart.
It was,
Loved it.
Thank you. It was a B minus. I'm already sort of redoing it in my head a little, but thank you. But you know what? Honestly, Lionel, a B minus story is great for dinner, for the golf course, for your friends. Like it needs to be better crafted for a stage. But what I always tell people is, if you're telling a B minus story, almost everyone who's not thinking about stories are telling D minus stories. So a B minus story in the world is pretty extraordinary.
I
So
loved
don't be
it.
afraid of the B minus. Thank you.
So, just to do a quick introduction, hello everybody. I'm Lionel Callis. Matt and I are partners. We've co created this beautiful universe of storytelling training for you. And we don't have enough time today for my origin story. Actually, Matt and I did a 30-minute interview where he pulls out my origin story, and we're going to share it with you in the next few weeks. And you guys will get to see it. Kind of starts, well, I'll share something with you now. It sort of starts with a box, and we'll tell you a little bit more about it inside our free academy. And what we're going to do now is we're going to get questions from everybody. I'm going to post them up on the screen. I'm going to read them out for you. So if you do have a question, like we said, post Q colon and then your question, and I can find them quicker. And we'll get a chance to ask Matt the question you've been looking to ask. Now, normally we do this face to face. So you're going to want to join us in the VIP after party where everybody will get, if you have a webcam, you'll get to ask Matt questions directly. We normally do this a little bit more intimately, but today we have chat. So let's do that. And without further ado, let's bring
Wait,
in.
Lionel,
Yeah,
I have a question for you first. Just tell them who's on that
sure.
box. Who's on the box you just showed?
Oh, the box. Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
the
who's
box
on the box?
showed
Tell them at least that.
that would be me. That would be me. You might notice my red beard. My hair is a little bit covered, but that would be me. And you'll learn a little bit more about that inside the academy. So,
That's
without
great.
further ado, let's find our first question here. We have a question from Lucy, and she wants to know, can you explain starting at the end? What does it mean, starting at the
Yeah.
end, Matt?
Sure. So I guess, Lucy, it doesn't mean we start telling the story at the end, but what I mean is storytellers are people who just think a little bit before they open their mouths. That really is the difference. Storytelling is nothing more than decision making. Doesn't matter what facility you have with the English language, what your vocabulary is, what your understanding of anything is. It's just simple decision making. And in order to make a good decision, you have to sort of know what you're aiming at. My son Charlie today built me an outdoor heater, one of those like you sit around it and you can toast marshmallows and it has propane, right? Charlie had a picture of what it was supposed to look like when he was finished. If I had just handed Charlie all the parts and a step by step instruction without him looking ahead to see what the result was supposed to be, that would have been incredibly difficult for him to put this thing together. Stories are not unlike this, meaning we have to know what the ending is so that we can make good decisions in getting there. So when I start with the end, what I do is the first thing I say to myself is, what's the point of this story? What's the thing I'm trying to say? What is the change that has occurred to me that I am trying to make my audience understand? In the story I just told you, I changed from a father who doesn't want his 16-year-old daughter cuddling with him in the midst of a movie to a father who regrets not allowing his daughter to cuddle with him in the midst of a movie, right? So I'm trying to tell you, I feel regret for pushing her away because I recognize these times are probably becoming fewer and farther between. So what a mistake I made. So Lucy, it simply means before you start telling your story, ask yourself, where am I trying to get to? What am I trying to say? What is my moment of transformation? What is the thing that happened that makes me want to speak this truth to other people? And put that in your mind. Then find an appropriate beginning and work your way to the end. Otherwise, you end up meandering. And meandering stories often don't end up anywhere, or sometimes miraculously someone finds an ending, but by then they've said so many irrelevant parts that it's sort of purposeless. So that's what I mean. I hope that answers the question.
That's great, Matt. Our next question here is from Michelle, and Michelle wants to know, how do you remember all the detail from the short homework for life prompt? Like,
Oh, that's a good
are,
question,
can you
Michelle.
do entries that are from like a long time ago? Is it because it's just fresh, the 72 hours? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, actually, Lionel, if you could put my homework for life up again, that would be really helpful to me so I
Coming up.
can show Michelle what I do. So, Michelle, if you look at my homework for life, you'll see that we're looking at the last 3 days of my homework for life, I think, right? Is that what we're looking at now, Lionel? I can't actually see it anymore.
Yep, we're looking at your screen. It's zoomed in a little bit.
Okay. Oh, it zoomed in a little. So if we look at my last 3 days, right? If you see on the bottom, it says daily sheet 87, daily sheet 86. So I do about 100 entries. You can see I'm at 107 entries right now, which means I'm ready to start a new sheet. So what this means is after this 107 entries, I'm going to skip and create a new sheet that will contain another 100 entries. And what I do, Michelle, is I get about 100 entries away and then I go back and review. So probably in about, I average about 7 moments per day these days. So like probably in about 3 weeks, I'm going to find myself coming back to this sheet and I'm going to be reviewing everything. And 3 weeks is a good amount of time to figure out, am I going to remember this moment or do I need to add detail to it? So a lot of times I will come back to an old sheet, something that happened about 3 weeks ago or a month ago, and I'll be rereading it and I'll be like, ooh, that one's getting a little flimsy in my mind. I might add some more details. I might even add another line underneath it and say, added details, and I'll include some more things. I'll also sometimes love a moment so much, I'll actually write about it. I post a blog every single day of my life for the last 20 years. And so a lot of times I'll go, oh, I want to remember every single thing about this day. And so I'll actually write a full blog post. You could think of it as I'm going to write a full diary entry about some of these so I don't lose them. You know, the day after our wedding, my wife and I got married 19 years ago. The day after the wedding, I spent 4 hours writing every single thing I could remember about the wedding. And now we remember our wedding with a specificity that no one else can remember 20 years later. My in-laws can't even remember if there was dancing at their wedding. And I can remember almost every minute of the wedding because I took the time to write it down. So sometimes when a moment is important, I'll actually write it all down. But that is probably about 3% of the time. Most of the time, what I've written down is suitable and I can hold on to it. But I do that little pass, that review after 3 or 4 weeks, just to make sure that nothing needs to be added for me to get back to the moment. One of the important things to remember, though, Michelle, is I'm only grabbing moments that really mean something to me. So if it doesn't mean something to me, it's unlikely I'm going to remember. And some of the moments, like I won't need to remember the specificity in order to enjoy it. I'm looking at the moment that says, I don't leave the theater to pee, which is remarkable. The movie was 3 hours long. I kept telling my daughter I need a pee bucket because a 3 hour movie is a stupid movie. I kept yelling at her about it. I have to pee all the time. I have to pee right now, honestly. I really can pee all the time. Somehow I made it through that movie without even needing to pee. Now, in 5 years, I won't need to really remember even what the movie was, but I will find it amusing that there once was a movie where I didn't have to pee through. So I might not remember the specificity, but I'll be happy I have the moment. And I'll probably be thinking, right, Clara took me to a long movie. I can't remember what the movie was, but I remember enough about it to remember I didn't pee during that movie, and that was kind of crazy. So that's how I sort of remember these moments with a little more specificity. I hope that helps.
Awesome, Matt. All right, we're going to bring up another question here. This question is from Nasir. How do you find a place to start the story where there isn't anything opposite of, and in quotes, how often will this happen again? End quote.
So I would say almost all the time there's an opposite. And if there isn't, you're probably telling an anecdote, right? I think that sometimes what happens is we're either telling an anecdote, not recognizing it for the story it could be, or we're just telling an anecdote. Let me give you an example. Last night, I played a game called 3-2-1 with my kids, actually 2 nights ago. We were at a dinner and we were waiting for our food. It's a game we play in Storyworthy. It's a really great game. It's about finding stories in your everyday life. But we were playing this game at the table, and my son Charlie told me this amazing story about being at the beach with my wife and his former preschool teacher collecting dead crabs. And then he is told by my wife, you can't take the dead crabs home. Don't be an idiot. He was about 8 at the time. So he stuffs his pockets with dead crabs and sneaks them home and puts them in his bedroom. And then about 5 days later, he noticed his bedroom is smelling and he can't figure out why at first. And then it occurs to him, oh, it's the dead crabs. So he has to sneak the dead crabs out of the house and into the trash can before me or my wife find out. I had no idea about this until the other night when he told me about it. He had kept that a secret from us forever. And he told it really well, much better than what I just did. And it amounted to an anecdote because it's just a thing that happened to him. There was no opposite at the beginning, right? But with kids and a lot of times with adults, they sort of stay in the shallow end of the pool instead of going deep. So I said, Charlie, that's a great anecdote. Can we try to turn it into a story? And he said, well, how would I turn it into a story? And I proposed to him, I said, was this an example of you discovering that mom is correct more often than you think? And he said, no, It's an example of me, how I tend not to believe people and I have to learn it for myself. And I went, aha, that's a story. That's a moment, right? That is a real moment of transformation. My son discovers through the dead crab incident that, listen, I'm just going to be plagued in my life with having to like prove things for myself. I tend not to believe people when they say things. And now that he knows the ending, he can find the opposite of that. I said, what's the opposite of you discovering you have to sort of learn things for yourself? And he said, well, I remember I used to hope that adults were right, and now I don't trust them anymore, and I have to find it out for myself. So he sort of found the beginning and the end and the opposition. The problem was he just told the anecdote and didn't really question or probe himself for the meaning of the moment. That's very common for teenagers and little kids and younger people. Less common for adults, but also common for adults. So what I would say is that if you don't feel like there's an opposite of the final moment to begin with, you're probably just needing to probe that story a little more clearly and find what that story really means. Once you figure out what that story means and how it changed you in some way, you just have to find the place where you were not changed, and that tends to be the beginning. Or you're telling a fantastic anecdote, which I often say is cotton candy, which is delicious but forgettable. Meaning you can entertain the hell out of people with an anecdote, but you can't really change hearts and minds with them. Doesn't mean they're bad. They're lovely. I love a good anecdote, but sometimes an anecdote is all it is. I hope that helps. I should get Charlie down here. He told that story so brilliantly. You can't even believe it. He started with location and action. He told it in the present tense. He started in a place of wonder. I could not believe how well he told that story.
Let's bring him on next time, Matt. We're actually going to
Yeah.
introduce a member of our team now, and so we're excited to do that. So let's bring Heather on. Matt, you want to introduce Heather for a second, and then we'll get Heather to introduce herself.
Sure. Heather's tricky to introduce to me because I've known her for a while and I don't know how I first met her, but Heather lives about 100 miles from me in New Hampshire. I'm in Connecticut. She is the only storyteller who's done 4 of our Speak Up Storytelling live shows in a row. I didn't know that. My wife informed me of that at our last show. She's a fantastic storyteller. She is taking up a role with Storyworthy as a mentor. So she's going to be helping people tell better stories. I am very, very particular about who I trust in terms of working with people on storytelling. I have many, many, many people they want to do this job where let me help people tell stories. And quite honestly, I'm just a monster who doesn't trust anybody. Maybe I'm like Charlie, right? Someone has to prove to me that they know what the hell they're doing repeatedly and over time. And Heather is one of the few people who has proven to me repeatedly over time that not only can she tell a great story, but the feedback that she offers people is excellent. And then she took it the third step, which was, Matt, can you help me improve my feedback by watching my feedback and giving me feedback on my feedback? So, in other words, unlike many people who sort of want to take the short road to success, Heather is taking the long, arduous, but meaningful road to becoming what she wants to be. And so for that reason, I trust her to be a mentor here at Storyworthy. I don't know how I did, Heather. Was that okay in terms of an introduction for you?
Yeah, I feel good about myself right now. Thank you.
Okay,
So,
great.
uh, I'm obsessed with storytelling because of Matt. So, anyone that knows me, it's all I talk about now. My name's Heather Daly. I've been working with Matt for a while and telling stories with him on stage at the Moth in his event in Connecticut, Speak Up. But it's only recently that I realized my storytelling journey started years ago when I owned my own restaurant. One day I was standing at the cash register at my restaurant helping customers pay their check during this crazy lunch rush. Tables are full, there's a line out the door when a man with a beard down to his belly walks up to me and says, "You should be fired. My meal was delicious, but what you're doing is illegal. You cannot refuse to take my cash." Now, I haven't had a day off in years, so his threat to fire me actually sounds amazing. Finally my chance to take a nap. But this man is referring to a bold decision I made in my business to only accept credit cards, which was actually unheard of in 2012. And occasionally it upset bearded people, but it also got them talking. So customers shared stories about our delicious homemade pies and chips, but also our unique approach to business. And this was the first time I realized people don't just buy products, they actually buy stories. I spent 10 years covered in flour running that restaurant. And since then, I've owned several other businesses. I've been a professional organizer and move manager, helping people declutter their lives. And I'm a mindfulness coach. I teach things like breathing and meditation to storytellers because fear of public speaking like often beats out the fear of death. And now I'm a business consultant and coach, helping entrepreneurs stand out with storytelling. And I've been a part of Matt's Storyworthy community for a long time. I love it. As you know, he's a walking encyclopedia of storytelling. And the VIP community is priceless because you can actually learn everything you need to know about storytelling in the courses, and then you get access to him. So thank you for letting me be a part of this, Matt.
Thanks,
Welcome, Matt.
Heather. That was great. I love what you said, that people don't buy products, they buy stories. I tell people that all the time. That's so true. I like to mention, I don't think my wife likes me when I say this, but this is true. She once told someone I'm a fundamentally unlikable person who tells a good story, and she loves me, right? So that is the idea of I managed to land the best spouse on the planet by telling great stories, despite the fact that I'm fundamentally unlikable.
All right, guys. We're going to take a few more questions and then we're going to wrap up and we're going to invite you to a VIP after party. So, Matt, I'm going to give us the next question here. We have a question from Thomas. And Thomas wants to know. Oh, one sec here. Let me bring it up again. We lost it there. How do you find the bravery to tell stories to others? I find that I can't find the courage because I'm not used to being vulnerable and open about my feelings, if that makes sense. Great question.
Yeah, I think, Thomas, what happens to people is they falsely predict what will happen when they are vulnerable. I think that what you discover when you're willing to tell a vulnerable story is that no one sort of judges you in the way you might be predicting they will judge you. Instead, they deeply appreciate you. I am always trying to tell stories about my stupidity and failure and misguided decision making. Actually, the story I told today was not a positive story about my behavior. I turned my daughter away in a moment when she wanted to cuddle with me. And I think in telling that story, what happens is people feel a little bit better about themselves and about the world. Maybe they've done something similar, or maybe they're just feeling like everyone around them looks better than they do. They probably spend more time on Instagram than they should, right? And so I come along and people like me and we share our ugliness. We share the moments that are not so great. But truly what happens is that people appreciate what you have done. We say that we tell stories from our scars rather than our wounds, meaning we don't want our stories to sound like they're therapy, which I've seen. And then people will not be as comfortable with your story if they feel like you're just processing and using us as your therapist. But as long as you can tell that story with some craft and some distance from it and you're okay with it, you don't get reduced to snot bubbles, right? And weeping. If none of that happens and you're just being vulnerable, you should do it every time. I have told stories about pretending to be a charity worker and stealing money from people in order to put gas in my car. Now, admittedly, if I did that yesterday, I probably wouldn't be telling the story. I did it when I was 19, so you get to say whatever you did when you were 19. You get to be dumb 30 years ago, and nobody cares about that, except they like to hear the story. So, I don't think it takes any courage for me also. This is really important to know. It does take courage, for sure. A woman once in a workshop told me I'm the bravest person she'd ever met because I'm willing to say anything. And I corrected her and said, I'm not, because I'm never afraid. But that's just me, like the horrendous human being that I am who lacks fear over things like this. But for most people, you're absolutely correct. Vulnerability requires courage, but that's why people appreciate it. We have to do the hard thing. I wrote in a novel once, the right thing is oftentimes the hard thing. And so doing the hard thing is always the right thing and people will appreciate for you. But you got to make that first initial dive, Thomas. I'd say do it in a low stakes environment. Don't do it in front of 5,000 people. Don't do it in front of your boss. Don't do it in front of the person you're hoping to marry someday. But do it, while you're hanging out with a couple buddies and see how it goes. I promise it's going to go great.
Awesome stuff, Matt. We're almost out of time here. So why
Wow,
don't we
time
wrap up?
flies, Lionel.
Yes, right.
Okay.
So why don't
Wow.
we wrap this up and invite everybody first? Let's let them know about our new free academy.
Right. So if you're interested, if you're not a member of our Storyworthy universe, I have a free academy. It's hours and hours of free storytelling training that you can go to simply by going to storyworthy.com, creating an account, and you'll have access to lots of materials that'll get you started. You know, I certainly have courses and things that we will talk about in the after party that are available for you, and a VIP program, which gives you access to everything. But start with the free academy. Like, I offer lots and lots of free instruction because I value storytelling, and I think it's worth doing for everyone. So go to the free academy, create an account, and start learning on your own. For being here today, you're going to get a free gift. If you go to the chat, we're going to have a link there for you. I talked about finding stories in your everyday life today, and the free gift is a tool that I offer people that helps them find storytelling or stories in their everyday life. So you can go to the chat and claim that free gift. And then you can join us in the after party where there will also be a link in the chat. And that's going to be a Zoom session. It's sort of the more traditional version of story time that I run, where we actually get to look at each other's faces and talk and pretend like we're in the same room, even though we're often thousands of miles apart. But it is a little more sort of intimate than what this is, which is I don't get to see any of you. I just stare at Lionel's face and some Heather's face, but I don't get to see you. But if you join us for the after party, we'll chat it up. I'll answer more questions. We'll show you what else we have in our Storyworthy community, and we'd love to have you join us there. Lionel, am I forgetting anything that I'm supposed to say?
Nope, not at all. You guys can check in the chat for the links for the free academy, the free gift that we are offering you guys for today. And you're going to want to come check out this VIP after party. Check out the Zoom link inside the chat, and we'll see you inside there.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Really nice seeing you. Take care. Have a
Thank you,
great
guys.
day. Go find some stories.
See you inside.